Hey everyone, really excited to have all of you here for this session. My name is Praveen. I'm one of the co-founders of Factors.ai. I take care of product, marketing, and customer success at Factors. Today, I'm really excited to host this session with two key partners of Factors. One is Jessica from LinkedIn, and
Hi,
then
everyone.
and from Zemble. Sorry, Jessica, you were saying something. Should I?
Oh, it's just great to be here with you, Praveen, and excited to share our insights about ABM effectiveness with the audience.
Yeah. And for everyone's introduction, Jessica is a senior manager, partner marketing at LinkedIn, looking at the measurement suite of solutions. And Sunny is a head of digital marketing and content at Zemble. Uh, to get started, so today we'll be covering the following topics, which is what are the common ABM measurement gaps? Why are ABM solutions not kind of translating into pipeline and revenue in many cases? How can you actually solve for that as well? We will be covering how LinkedIn's conversions API integration helps you close the loop between real world outcomes and your campaign optimization on the LinkedIn Campaign Manager. We will also cover the company intelligence API from LinkedIn, which is one of the newest features that they've released, which essentially gives you a lot more visibility into which companies are engaging with your organic and paid content on LinkedIn, essentially helping you refining your targeting and, more importantly, also measure the impact of all of your efforts on LinkedIn to downstream metrics all the way from awareness to pipeline and revenue. Further, I'll be handing it over to Zani to talk about Semble and how they are using factors and the company intelligence CAPI integrations to drive business outcomes over the last 1 year. To the end, we will end with a Q&A session, and Jessica and I would be happy to kind of get back to you on any of the questions that you have. So that is the agenda for today. Jessica, over to you to just talk
Yeah,
about the union.
let's get into it. So, to start us off with some statistics to just ground ourselves and understand how the market's moving and how things are shaking out with B2B marketing. The first stat I'll land with you all is that as marketers, we all share a common goal of making sure the work we do actually moves the needle for our business. That, by and large, that's what our job is all about. ROI, it's not just a buzzword, it's the expectation. And frankly, that expectation is only getting more important. In fact, nearly 80% of B2B CMOs are saying that proving ROI has become a bigger priority over the last 2 years. And this comes from research that LinkedIn conducted with YouGov on ROI research back in 2025. But in B2B, proving impact is especially challenging. You're dealing with long sales cycles that are longer than B2C, multiple touch points across channels, buying journeys that involve multiple stakeholders that makes measuring impact difficult, and the platforms are frankly not built for our B2B use case. On top of that, we're hearing from B2B buyers, and this is research that was again conducted by LinkedIn, but this time in association with Bain, on buyability. So we're hearing some growing expectations to deliver ROI, and then there's some other shifts in how the B2B journey is actually even working. So we're hearing B2B buyers say that 46% say internal misalignment is the biggest barrier to purchase. It's bigger than price point. It's bigger than product capabilities. It's about internal alignment. Then 70% say they can't get approval unless there's an org-wide confidence in the choice. That means it's not just one buyer, of course, that signs the DocuSign. It's almost the entire company that needs to agree on moving forward with a purchase. Another interesting one, and this one makes you scratch your head a little bit in terms of like what you're doing with your demand gen tactics, but it says 81% of winning vendors are already known by almost everyone in the buying group on day one of that buying journey. So you need to be known before they even visit the website, before they even fill out the form. So what does all this mean? You have to win that committee before the conversation even starts. That's both an awareness problem, it's also a measurement problem, and we'll get into that a bit more. So, in addition to all of these things, we're then seeing a fundamental shift in buyer behavior. I think we're all aware that LLMs and AI are changing how customers are doing research. They're changing how customers behave on the internet. We're seeing things like 68% of B2B buyers prefer to do the research on their own. Of course, we all want to do research. We want to understand how things work. We want to read the Reddit threads. We want to read the comments. 60% of buyers prefer not to interact with a sales rep as a primary source of information. So even though we train up our SDRs as to the best of our capabilities, buyers want to do that research on their own before even contacting sales. And then the last nugget I'll give you is 57% of the B2B purchase decision is made before even speaking to sales reps. So it's over half of the decision's been made before they fill out a form to talk to sales. So all these are very intriguing stats. I think it kind of paints a picture that like maybe the deck is stacked against us, but we're going to talk through how you can shift your measurement and shift your strategy to keep pace with these changing trends. So Praveen, talk us through a bit more of what you're seeing from factors.
Yeah, so as you said, right, like for 78% of CMOs, and we see that as well, that one of the priorities is proving campaign ROI. Now, if you think of it, analytic solutions or measurement solutions are not a new category of product, right? They've been around for a while, but then it is still a challenge for most marketers to have a convincing conversation about ROI to their executive teams. And that is because the buying cycle is changing. And based on everything that you said earlier, right, in terms of the buyers being much more independent, them wanting to kind of research about products on their own before they actually engage with vendors. I've just put that together in a pictographic form, right? So the legacy buying cycle that most marketing teams are used to, typically, I'd say it went on from 2005 to maybe around 2020, 2021. Buyers were essentially kind of starved of information. They did not have good information sources, research sources, and hence they were very dependent on vendor content. So at the earliest stages in their purchase process, when they were evaluating solutions, when they were forming an opinion about whether this problem is worth solving, what would be the ROI, etc., they were actually signing up for content from vendors on their websites. Imagine our typical ROI calculators and RFP ads, which vendors would publish themselves, saying this is how you would evaluate the category. You should evaluate the category. And 5 years back, those content pieces were very, very prevalent and very important for buyers as they were going through this process. Now, what has changed essentially is that now buyers have superpowers in terms of research, right? So whilst earlier the research phase was very short, and then there was an extended sort of buying phase, going back to the previous slide, where your sales team had a clear opportunity to influence a buyer and the buying process. Now what's happening is, with the rise of LLMs and personalized research agents that you can build, buyers have all the information in the world. They are not dependent on vendor content. They can scour through the entire web, come up with like a precise sort of research on which vendors are doing well, not just based on vendor content, but based on review content, based on their peer feedback on LinkedIn and other platforms, right? So buyers now are much more in control with respect to the research, and that results in them delaying that the moment when they actually raise their hands and decide to talk to vendors. It also means that they actually talk to fewer vendors now because they are much more informed. And when they get into that sales process, they're not really looking at the salesperson on the vendor side as a source of authentic information. They're just looking at them as someone who will guide them through the process, but they already have well-formed opinions. And on the average, just 3 vendors make it to this shortlist. Now, the challenge happens because historically, measurement solutions have just focused on this transition when buyers move from the research phase to the buying phase, typically what we have modeled as a marketing qualified lead, right? And that was okay before, when vendors had so much control over the process. But in the current world, when buyers are doing their research anonymously, they are reluctant to kind of share their information and raise their hand. When they do actually come into the sales process, they're coming in with very well-formed opinions and a clear priority. you really need to expand the scope of your measurement solution to start measuring how are you driving brand recall at the earliest stages of the process. It's just it would be too narrow-minded to focus only on what was that last touch point which caused them to move from researching anonymously to booking a demo, because that the weightage of that touch point is actually much lower now than everything that helps the buyer do the research. And what we have seen, like this is obviously a fundamental shift, right? And I, for one, do not expect this to be a transient in nature. If anything, I expect this trend to accelerate. That buyers would be far more independent, let's say a couple of years down the line than they are even now. And we do see that in our research when we look at the traditional marketing channels that B2B marketers have been used to for the longest time. Across our customer base, when we did this research, what we saw was that organic traffic to websites has decreased by around 1.25%. And this was actually even more predominant in case of companies who had more than 50,000 sessions on the website. Two-thirds of them have reported a drop in traffic. In terms of content downloads, so the ebooks that you publish around the ultimate guide to any topic or equivalents of those, we're seeing like a 5% decline in terms of downloads of those assets. Webinar registrations are also kind of after the COVID peak, we see that that's also kind of now not holding up in terms of volumes year over year. And what is also happening is that because these traditional channels, which have been what I would call workhorses for marketing teams, have been delivering results for the last like 15 years, suddenly when you see a secular sort of headwind, which is impacting all of these channels at the same time, what we see is a lot of marketers are doubling down on bottom of the funnel advertising channels like search, which is resulting in a 24% on the median increase in cost per click on search. Even then, my submission is that unless you are influencing the buyer in the research phase and engaging with them and forming that sort of driving that brand recall across the buying committee, it will be much harder for you to kind of capture that demand at the last stage, because as we discussed, buyers already have a very strong preferences and they're shortlisting even fewer vendors right now. So your odds of actually bidding on a competitor keyword and at the last minute capturing that demand or sniping that demand, it's probably going to become much harder. It might still be delivering some results for you, albeit at elevated cost right now. But over time, that is going to become much harder as buyers come up with even more ways in which they can more stringently shortlist the partners they're working with. So this is the trend that we are seeing. Jessica, what are you seeing at your side?
Sure. Overall, what we just went through, to me, paints the picture of needing to do more awareness campaigns and publish more ungated content. The question then becomes, well, how do you measure it all? And I'd say historically, marketers have optimized for metrics that they can easily measure, things that easily show up in the platforms that are truly built for more of a B2C use case. Things like clicks, impressions, individual engagement, CPL, CPCs, reach, CTR, which are all the metrics that are readily accessible in the platforms that many people use. The stepping stone is understanding if you're reaching your holistic buying group in an ABM context. So by moving from measuring individual actions to measuring engagement at the company level, this is where we can begin to acknowledge the reality of B2B purchasing. What we've been talking about is that purchases are made by groups, not single leads. This step helps reach the ultimate goal of connecting marketing efforts to tangible business outcomes. That means tying activity not only to the engaged accounts, but to actual opportunities, to pipeline, and of course to revenue, which was at the very top of our conversation here. How does marketing tie themselves to ROI? So as we think about measurement going forward, vanity metrics are no longer enough. I used to joke with my boss a while back of let's not be a last click head, last click touch. It doesn't work. So account level insights, that's what brings us closer to the finish line with full alignment to revenue. And that's how we ensure our marketing is making meaningful, measurable impact on the business. So let's
Yeah,
talk
I
a
mean,
little bit. Oh, go ahead.
correct. I completely agree with what this slide kind of captures. And if we had to leave like one takeaway for everyone who's listening in, I think distinguishing between these media metrics,
Mm-hmm.
market metrics at an account level, engagement, touch point, intent, how many companies have you reached, what is your coverage amongst your target account list, etc. And that becomes like a stepping stone to business metrics, right? Because if you report only on business metrics, you're not kind of explaining how were those business outcomes achieved. And if you're reporting only on media metrics, then it becomes harder to kind of tie in campaigns to these outcomes, right? So introducing a layer in between, which I believe a lot of marketing teams are still to adopt,
Mm-hmm.
would make those conversations much more easier in those executive meetings, I feel.
Excellent. So let's talk a bit more now about how we fix the gap. So there is a fix. It's not all doom and gloom on this webinar. The unlock, for the first unlock that we'll talk you through, is all about CAPI, or Conversions API, as the full, well, actually the full name is Conversions Application Programming Interface. What that means is it's a direct server-to-server connection between things like your CRM, that could be HubSpot, that could be Salesforce, that could be Dynamics, through Factors, and then to LinkedIn. That means your conversion events will flow straight to LinkedIn, things like free trials, MQLs, demo requests, the signals that actually matter to your business. So it removes the reliance on cookies, on pixels, and it lets LinkedIn see what actually drives the deal, allowing you to move past the click to metrics that matter for your ABM strategy. So to help you illustrate where CAPI actually comes into a buyer journey, let me walk you through a very theoretical path. So in this example, the buyer starts off with seeing an ad from our company. Let's call them Fig and Fig. They're a B2B SaaS company. What do you know? One of these ads captures the buyer's attention. She clicks on the ad and she's taken to a landing page. While our buyer, she found the ad interesting, she wasn't quite ready to dive any deeper into the solution. Through her research, she comes back to the site to sign up for the Fig and Fig newsletter so she can stay informed. Then the newsletter, she gets an email alert that they have an upcoming event in her hometown. She reads more about the event on the event landing page and ends up signing up to attend. At the event, somewhat kind of similar to what Sunny does with you, Praveen, he hears about what others are doing in the industry using that product. She decides she wants to see more for herself. So when she gets back to her desk the next day, she goes back to the website and books a demo with a salesperson. She does the call with the SDR. Great, SDR did their follow-up, learns more about the product, and she opts into a 30-day free trial that ultimately turns into purchase. So if we take a look at this journey, we have 6 key conversion events that we want to track. 3 are online, that she clicked the ad, she landed on the landing page. She clicked the email, she landed on the landing page. But 3 other of those events are completely offline conversions. Things like the event registration or showing up at the event, the demo is being booked, that's a signal inside your CRM. And then that demo, that 30-day trial, turning into revenue. Again, that's technically an offline event that would need to be piped back to LinkedIn. So what we do here with CAPI is we're tying all of those offline and online conversion events into conversions and sending them over to LinkedIn so you can use them to optimize your campaigns. So how does it work? Let's just go to the next one for me. And I think this one's a build. So what you get out of this is you get some amazing results. You get things like you can improve your full funnel measurement. You can unlock greater optimization. You can then use them to build audiences and reach the right audience. And of course, it gives you much higher control over your data because again, it's a server-to-server connection, fully privacy safe, PII compliant. And beyond that, there's actual measurable results and measurable benefits to implementing CAPI. Across our customers, we see things like a 31% increase in attributed conversions when CAPI is installed, and a 20% decrease in cost per action. Praveen, I'm sure you have lots of experience hearing from customers on CAPI. What are they seeing in terms of benefits when they implement?
Yeah, so the way I think about CAPI, Jessica, is that LinkedIn is essentially giving each of its advertisers a very powerful tool to train LinkedIn's ad algorithm
Mm-hmm.
based on the conversions that matter for them, right? So this has been prevalent quite a lot in the B2C segment, as you said, where the purchase cycle is really low. So you're landing on a landing page and immediately kind of buying something. Obviously, in B2B, it's much more complex, more buying committee members spread over at the minimum of, let's say, 30 days to maybe 365 days. And LinkedIn already has a firmographic data and the member level data of all the members, right? Like, so you have very rich data on their job
Mm-hmm.
title, qualities, years of experience, and so on. What advertisers can now do is, by ensuring that they send all the signals back into LinkedIn, you're essentially kind of training LinkedIn's algorithm to work for you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because that's data that advertisers don't have, so if you're kind of working on the platform, then or investing into the platform, it becomes like a no-brainer to kind of do this. One thing I would caution is that, or I would call out, is when we think of conversions, a lot of my clients tend to think of only the extreme bottom of the funnel, like a demo booking or
Right.
signal. I believe that is a mistake. The reason I say that is, on LinkedIn, you would be driving campaigns with different objectives, right? And going back to what
Mm-hmm.
we said earlier, you're doing a certain set of campaigns for driving brand awareness and recall.
Sure.
Then you're doing some campaigns for driving conversions in the more traditional sense of leads and inquiries. For your brand awareness campaigns, what I would recommend is start sending top of the funnel data back, including, do you see those accounts coming to your pricing page? Are they checking out your interactive demo or videos on your website? Send those signals back to LinkedIn for your top of the funnel campaign, so that you can measure the impact of your top of the funnel campaigns in terms of engagement more easily. And for your bottom of the funnel campaigns, obviously definitely look at inquiries, meetings, and all of those subsequent metrics as well. But that's one thing that I do see a bunch of customers tripping over, because they end up sending only sales qualified accepted meetings for the
Right.
which I believe doesn't serve well for your brand awareness campaigns, at least.
Especially when we know that the buying cycle is half a year
Yeah.
and marketers are expected to report on results every month. So you need to have some early signals of where things are trending before a sales cycle can take effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. So that is what I would say about CAPI. And another sort of typically when I speak to customers, what I tell them is, if you have not implemented CAPI yet, obviously it works once you have a certain critical volume of data, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you implement it, maybe in 6 months, a year, the challenge you'd face is all your peer group and other advertisers who are targeting similar sort of members would have already implemented it. And that may be when you start seeing really adverse effects if you're not kind of leaning into systems like this, right? So that is something that I would again caution that start doing this early. It doesn't really significantly cost you much, and it is one of those things that can have like that can be very high leverage from a campaign ROI perspective.
Yep. And in fact, in terms of cost, I think it's if you're using a partner like Factors or one of the many partners we have, predominantly it's free. It's part of the solution.
Yes,
Yeah.
precisely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's us talking through. We've solved the signals problem. The next area I'd love us to talk about is the buying group and how do we measure against the buying group. So once you've moved your reporting on clicks and CPMs to reporting on things like influence on MQLs and SQLs, we know that the B2B deal isn't one that's done with just one buyer. It takes a full buyer group. We're seeing research that the buyer group is now over 22 stakeholders in an average buying group. That's quite large. So then there needs to be a move to go beyond the campaign that targets just the individuals, and instead of focus on reaching and nurturing that entire buying group at the right companies. So if you go to the next one, if that poses the question, like if the B2B buying group is driven by group consensus, how does one measure group consensus? What are those metrics? What does that even look like? So let's take a look through what it means and why LinkedIn has built the company intelligence API to begin with. So at its core, honestly, LinkedIn has the best B2B data. It has over 63 million decision makers, 11 million executives engaging with our content on a regular basis. And as we just talked about with Cappy and with Signals, we can then combine that with your first party data to help hone and focus the data set to drive better precision and accuracy for optimization and targeting. So these things combined together build truly a best-in-class data set that's the core of your marketing strategy. So what does that all mean? That all means we put together what's called the Company Intelligence API. Factors is one of the initial launch partners that integrated this API into their dashboards. And what Company Intelligence does is it takes engagement level data, number of leads, paid clicks, organic impressions, plus a whole host of other company level touch points, aggregates that data together and pipes it over into platforms like Factors. So where you can do robust measurement with these providers. You can do things like real-time ROI, you can validate full funnel impact. It allows you to better justify marketing investments to stakeholders and inform critical investment decisions. Praveen, I'm sure you have lots of amazing results, but I know through the beta period, we actually had some fantastic stats that really prove the efficacy of shifting to company level reporting.
Yeah. So we were really excited to be one of the launch partners. And I believe we launched Company Intelligence in September.
Yep.
In beta. So we initially onboarded around 10 customers, and then based on the results, and the results were extremely compelling, right? So the 10 customers that we did beta with, they reported a 287% increase in companies reached, 81% increase in closed won deals, and a 43% decrease in cost per acquisition, right? And what this allowed those teams to do, and that's where I believe the power of analytics comes in, is it actually gives you confidence, right, in terms of what you're doing. Most marketing teams that I work with, they already know through intuition that the investments that they're making into various platforms are actually translating into business benefits. But however, it just becomes harder for them to talk to their peers and executives only based on intuition. And what Company Intelligence actually allowed them to do is quantify the impact of all of this. And the added advantage was obviously the integration of paid and organic data into one single sort of interface, which is obviously a game changer for many of them, because they are now implementing an integrated strategy on LinkedIn, ranging from company brand, founder brand, and then using paid as an accelerant to kind of ensure that message is kind of widely distributed. So Company Intelligence was a game changer for many of our customers in their journey in terms of ROI measurement. And also, I'd say leveraging LinkedIn as a platform more efficiently, because some of the newer ad formats that LinkedIn has launched are also much more amenable to measurement, which is not click based, right? And about Factors, very briefly. So we are a analytics and campaign management platform. We work with over 1,000 GTM teams currently. We've been working with LinkedIn for over 3 years now, and we are integrated into multiple sort of feature sets within LinkedIn, such as attribution analytics, audience, Cappy, Company Intelligence, and the lead gen forms, right? In terms of Company Intelligence itself, at a high level, what it does is, as shown in this slide, it talks about each company and gives you both paid impressions, paid clicks, and organic engagements, right? And what it essentially allows you to do is it kind of, one, gives you a lot more signals at an account level. And then more importantly, through the integration with Cappy, you can then stream those conversion signals from Factors into LinkedIn. And as I talked about earlier, you can stream signals which are more top of the funnel in terms of engagement on high intent pages. For example, some of the signals I send by are pricing page visits, case study page visits, interaction with videos that we have on the website, and then bottom of the funnel signals such as trial signups, demo conversions, upgrades within my product, right? So we have a self-serve sort of flow as well, and all upgrades go back to LinkedIn so that we can optimize based on those. And all the way into the sales process in terms of meetings, deals, and then closed won accounts. So company intelligence, CAPI, I'd say, are two sides of the picture. So company intelligence gives you a lot more information to refine your targeting and help you optimize your campaigns. And CAPI helps you ensure that those signals are going back to LinkedIn so that LinkedIn auto optimizes your
Right.
campaign on your behalf, right? In addition to this, you can also sync audiences from factors into LinkedIn, and again, the company intelligence data is also available over here. So imagine being able to build an audience which is the equivalent of give me all the companies that have seen our organic posts on LinkedIn more than 5 times in the last 90 days and have also been on our website and checked out high intent pages, and have also been reported in G2 from a buyer intent perspective. So you're able to build very, very hyper targeted campaigns, and just by virtue of refining your targeting, your campaign performance on LinkedIn improves quite a bit, right? And you pair the audience sync with sales alerts so that when these accounts are on your website and they are checking out some of your content in a timely manner, your sales team kind of reaches out and they are able to close that deal, right? So we are a full funnel sort of solution all the way from measurement, conversion optimization, audience management, and then sales alerts. Now, what we have seen, as I was talking about earlier, is that because of the newer sort of ad formats that LinkedIn has introduced around thought leader ads, video ads, etc., we have seen our customers dramatically increase their spend on brand on LinkedIn, and the share of brand advertising spend on LinkedIn has increased from 17% to around 31% for our cohort of customers. Again, I expect that this is a trend that will continue because I just believe some of these ad format units are just so compelling, right? So we kind of invest heavily in thought leader ads and video, and CTV as well. And that is when the importance of some of these solutions becomes even more critical, right? So for your brand advertising spend, how do you actually justify that to your CFO? Because you cannot just talk about creatives, reach, and impressions. You want to be able to feed those conversion signals back and use the company intelligence data to measure how all of these brand advertising investments are having a multiplier effect on other channels. Now, we did this analysis, and what we saw was that the LinkedIn investment was clearly a force multiplier. It is a fallacy to look at LinkedIn as an isolated channel. The best mental model that I have is that LinkedIn is a horizontal sort of investment which accelerates all your other channels, be it paid search, be it outbound or content marketing, right? What we have seen across our customers is that when you advertise to companies on LinkedIn, they later end up searching for your brand and coming to your website. Because let's face it, nobody just wakes up one fine day and remembers your brand to search for it and come to your landing page, right? They are being primed, and the brand recall is driven by the ads that they've seen on LinkedIn. And when they do that, when they come to your landing page, they are 46% more likely to convert than an account which is not aware about you. Same thing for outbound deals, right? So from a meeting to deal conversion rate, accounts that are already aware about you on the average are 43% more likely to respond to your sales outbound efforts. And when I say more aware about you, I'm talking about they being exposed to ABM campaigns on LinkedIn. And let's look at content marketing. So you have a lot of ungated content or gated content on your website. If you compare accounts that have been part of your ABM advertising campaigns to those who are not, you would see that accounts that are already exposed to your ads are 112% more likely to actually raise their hand once they land on the website. So essentially, LinkedIn drives leverage across all your other channels. And this is a conversation which a marketing team can have with their executives and their CRO to say, how much is this worth? How much is it worth if I'm able to drive more efficiency, ranging from 46% to 112%? And that is the value of the brand advertising investment that you're doing on LinkedIn. With factors, we make it super easy for you to kind of measure all of this. So this is how, let's say, the meeting to deal conversion rate that I'd spoken about, you can do like a simple sort of lift analysis measurement on factors, where you can see accounts that on the average your conversion rate is around 15% to a deal from the time that from all the accounts that you book a meeting with. But then accounts that saw more than 100 impressions on LinkedIn, your deal creation rate is around 25%. And as I had mentioned earlier, I take care of marketing for factors as well. And to my CRO, what I typically talk about is how much is this extra 10% worth, because that is why that you're able to drive from your LinkedIn investment, right? Uh, so company intelligence hence becomes a cornerstone for all of these sort of measurements. And it becomes increasingly more important as you invest into upper funnel sort of advertising efforts on LinkedIn. So all of this can then be finally integrated into a ABM reporting dashboard in Factors, which helps you measure, as Jessica had mentioned, everything from accounts that you're reaching, accounts with high engagement, how many accounts have marketing qualified leads, so they're essentially marketing qualified accounts, and all the way to pipeline and revenue, right? So all of this becomes out of the box available from Factors, integrating company intelligence and CAPI as well. All right, and now I'm very excited to introduce Sunny, head of digital marketing and content at Zemble. Zemble was one of our earliest customers for the company intelligence API when we launched it in September. I worked very closely with Sunny to integrate the insights from company intelligence into Zemble's marketing and sales workflows and have a more integrated ABM strategy working out at Zemble. Sunny, really excited to have you here. And it's a pleasure once again to do this session with you.
Thanks, Praveen, for having me here. It's been a pleasure working with Factors and the wider team as well. Jessica, nice to meet you again.
So, Sunny, I thought what we could discuss was I remember when we had first met, you were going through a really interesting sort of journey where you were going through a full company rebrand. And I remember that was the point at which we had started discussions around the importance of brand building for your new identity and how you are planning to leverage LinkedIn extensively for that. So maybe we can give some context on that, Sunny, and then talk about some of the outcomes we've been able to achieve.
Yeah, Praveen. So Zemble, we've been rebranded for about 3 years now. We used to be called Make It Cheaper, and the business has been around for 15 plus years. Make It Cheaper kind of said what it did on the tin. And then we wanted to have a bit more of a startup feel name, something, one word, and not all of our products were going to be cheaper that we were adding into, our product ecosystem. So we went through this whole rebrand, came up with Zemble, and part of that then is, creating awareness for the name and what it does. And so we run full funnel ABM campaigns on LinkedIn. We started with a light program on LinkedIn, focusing on a certain segment of ours that takes a bit of time to nurture, which is our commercial and industrial segment. And all those decision makers are definitely on LinkedIn. So we wanted to focus on quick service restaurants as a segment and worked with one BDR to put content in front of that audience, moving from tofu to mofu to bottom of funnel. And the only metrics we did have at that time were what we got from LinkedIn. And back in the days, we were using Clearbit, but then it got acquired by HubSpot and we couldn't use the free version anymore. So I think I was at one of the LinkedIn events and you were there, the Be to Believe, and I came across a flyer of Factors and Andrew put it in front of me as well. And I kept it on my desk for like a week. And then finally it was like, okay, I don't have access to Clearbit. I'm running this ABM Lite. I need something more greater for attribution. So we came on this journey with you guys, which has been great because it's allowed me to kind of see certain insights that I wouldn't see before, in terms of how people are moving through the funnel and the signals and everything, and within the Factors platform. So yeah, it's been about, I think, a year now, Praveen, that we've kind of implemented Factors, and we've grown our ABM program to kind of go after other segments as well right now. and we're seeing some wins, and we're seeing some good data in there that I can take to the CFO and show them like the multiple touch points on big accounts that have come through, not only just like on the last click and opting in through like a Google channel. I can actually then go back and say, you know what? No, marketing, we were in front of this account and engaging them, and look how they viewed our ads and certain touch points. And then finally they went to Google and they submitted a lead, but we didn't want Google to get that attribution. So now I can show that our activity on LinkedIn has actually influenced that account. And when they were ready, they actually opted in, and they actually even said they saw a lot of our, creative and messaging on LinkedIn, and we were in their top 3 list, which is a really good story for us, right? So we were basically on the shelf before they walked into the supermarket, which was good to know, right? So that's kind of been,
No, so I think very interestingly, like the 2 things that you mentioned, which really stand out, and I hear consistently from customers as well, is, as you said, right, it's important to be in that short list before the buyer actually decides to, take that demo or speak to vendors, and that awareness can only be driven through top of the funnel, very compelling sort of creatives and messages which drive that recall. And the second thing that you said, which is about standing up a ABM program from scratch, and how it was imperative for you to start with one segment, one BDR who was interested, and then roll out the program, right? And with many of my customers as well, I typically advise them to say, yes, there is always this pressure to kind of say, let's do something like massive, full-fledged for the entire TAM of 2,000 accounts and 10 BDRs. But then it's very hard to kind of get that early success, ensure consistency in your effort, and then hence drive adoption internally within the company as well. So both of what you said really kind of resonates with what I'm observing as well across our customer base.
Yeah, and I find, and also obviously with the limited budget we had at that time, so I had to, pick one segment, pick one hungry BDR to kind of demonstrate the value of it. And then, but by doing that, it's helped us to increase our budget and spend to go after different segments now. I just wanted to make sure that that budget that we did have, that we are reaching and maximizing within that QSR industry, the accounts that were on that list, and they were, getting our content. So I would always recommend, if anyone's going to start it, don't go full blown, start ABM light, find that one champion within the team, in the BDR team, who's hungry, and pick one segment and focus on that, get some wins, and then that will kind of create a story, a compelling story to go to the CFO and say, you know what, okay, let's increase the spend. And this becomes a BAU channel. Like, we are BAU LinkedIn. We will never switch it off. We might strategically change every quarter in terms of who we're going after and stuff. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we can get some more budget to go after some more targeted accounts, because it has been a big focus here recently now to kind of really embed ABM. And thanks, Praveen, for jumping on a call with our BDR team and taking them through, how you guys use factors. I think that gave them a really good insight. And, there are a few BDRs right now that are champions and taking real advantage of the alerts that I'm sending to them when it comes to certain accounts visiting the website. We are creating now the accounts automatically in Salesforce, which is great through the workflow that we've set up in Factors. And then I also have an AI agent doing some research and stuff, and enriching that account even further, and then assigning it to a BDR, and they're reaching out now as well. So hopefully we'll get some wins off of that. So now we've taken that next step and actually pulling in some of the data from Factors into Salesforce, which is great.
Yeah. And Sunny, I think, as you said, we started our journey almost a year back. And I think almost exactly at halfway mark is when the company intelligence launch happened. And you were one of our early sort of pilot customers, I think amongst the first 10 customers that we enabled it for. And what I recall was that from a purely measurement perspective, company intelligence unlocked a lot for us, purely in terms of scale of data and visibility, right? And some of the numbers are here on the screen for us to see. I think we saw almost 3.2x increase in revenue influenced by LinkedIn, almost 0.4x increase in reach, and 100% increase in MQLs, largely because on this new infrastructure, LinkedIn was for the first time giving us a lot more access to data, both paid and organic. And I remember clearly that you were investing into a very robust organic strategy as well.
Oh yeah.
So could you just talk about how company intelligence was like impactful internally, right? Like we have some of these numbers, but how did your conversations change internally, and giving you that confidence to kind of scale even more?
Yeah, look, I mean, we are so big on organic and paid and keeping consistency on it. And one of the things is like, questions come up like, organic content, is it doing anything, this, that, but with the intelligence, we were able to see certain accounts engaging with our organic content initially at first, and then moving and seeing some of the paid stuff, right? And I can pull out accounts and names and put them in front of stakeholders internally, and they are now customers of ours. And the story to say, look, organic has actually driven this, or it has influenced it, plus with our paid, it's such a bigger story to kind of tell. Part of that is also seeing, some of our competitors actually right at the top. And I think that's across the board. You see that, right, with other customers, and that for us is like, okay, we need to stay ahead of the game. If they're checking out stuff and they're going to certain pages and looking at what content we're posting, and then we can see that they're changing as well, it just keeps us ahead of the game. That now we have to make a shift as well. So that was really great to kind of see that granular, those signals and stuff coming from that CAPI. So which you wouldn't see before, right? You wouldn't get any of that. So it kind of helps to really paint the picture and stitch up that data and factors from organic posting to like, okay, here's paid and how everyone's moving through it. And some of our clients, they take months to, as you said earlier, to be on that buying list. Like they want to work with us, and it takes some months depending on the size of the business. And one of the ones recently is, and I can't name the customer, but I could definitely show that, okay, they saw some stuff organically that we were posting, and then they got targeted by some paid stuff. They didn't click on any of the paid, but they saw us top of funnel, then they saw mid funnel, and then they finally kind of clicked and came to certain website, to some of the pages on our website, and then they went to Google and then they submitted there, and it was actually the decision maker that we wanted to do business with. And that's a great story to kind of show. And we will pull the stat out, and we are sharing it now at kickoffs and showing that kind of 360 bird view timeline to the business, so they can understand it, and the rest of the Zemblers here can understand what's going on with the ABM program. Because it was working with a few people, but now we're trying to embed it in everyone, especially on the sales floor, to kind of really embrace it and provide us like with accounts that you want to go after. And we will then create messaging organic that the BDRs could share. We could share from a company level as well. So the messaging is the same in paid, organic, what the BDRs are sharing as well. And recently we've done a bit of work on our CEPs, which is our category entry points for CNI and SME. So there's a bit of creative work happening around that we will shift a little bit, and actually in top of funnel, put a problem there that they're not aware of when it comes to these category entry points. So that's going to be a real interesting one for us. And with factors, we'll be able to actually see, and because we'll create these as interest groups, right? And so we will actually be able to see which accounts are engaging with these category entry points that we've done some research on. And this will just become a signal and a data point for our BDRs to kind of go out there and outreach, and it won't be cold. It'll be so warm and hot, right? And that's what we want. We don't want them to waste time on cold stuff. We want them to kind of use these signals, use these behaviors, get this intelligence, and then we'll provide it to them from a marketing perspective that now you can kind of go out there and reach outreach and stuff, and they'll know, the account will know that they've engaged with our stuff.
Yeah, Sunny, that is great to hear, and I obviously I'm looking forward to working with you and scaling our partnership. I hope that with the early results that you're seeing, you'll now be able to roll it out across verticals and we can convince a lot more BDRs to kind of
Yeah.
come on board and use these signals that we're able to give. And I think, as you said, right, like leveraging organic strategically with paid, that's something again that I can't, very constantly speak to customers about. A lot of them are doing paid on LinkedIn, and then I keep telling them how if you're able to leverage organically, it just supercharges your paid efforts as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's not an either or; they just kind of have like a multiplier effect on each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
100%, definitely.
yeah, and even organic content, you have to kind of create it. It is a certain investment, so there is a chicken and egg problem there. So unless you are able to kind of show the ROI, how do you invest further and improve your
Yeah.
presence? Right? So
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, a lot of the content that we're doing now, we're producing that it can just show up and have visibility across certain LLMs because a lot of research is happening there right now. And I'm not even worried about the click. I just want visibility. I want,
Right.
if anyone's going to search up anything to do with energy, I want Zemble to be there. They don't even have to click on it, right? But I have set up dashboards and factors when it comes to the certain AI platforms that I could see certain accounts coming from ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini or whatnot. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that we're doing is to make sure that we get cited, on Reddit. Number one, platform right now to get cited. LinkedIn, I think, is number 2. So we're changing our game and using these data and signals to kind of refine our strategy and make sure that we show up in these places where research is happening.
Got it. Thanks, Honey. Thanks again for taking the time out. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you in Sydney when I'm there next.
Thank you
Yes,
so
you
much
too.
for sharing your story.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. So just to conclude the session today, so I wanted to leave everyone with 4 key takeaways based on what we are seeing across our customer base. Right. Firstly, a lot of the traditional channels that marketers have been betting on, including organic content, gated assets, we see that they are under significant stress.
Right.
And that means that you really now have to kind of be creative about how you're spreading the word, right? How are you driving awareness amongst your target accounts so that whilst they are in the research phase, you are in the shortlist. And when they decide to kind of do demos, they actually include you in that process. Now, LinkedIn obviously is the ideal platform for you to do this in a B2B context because of its rich member level data and its very, very wide reach. Having said that, you would still need to be able to measure the impact of your LinkedIn campaigns and have that conversation with your CFO because let's face it, budget pressures is a reality that we have to kind of work with. So connecting your LinkedIn campaigns to pipeline and revenue and not just focusing on media metrics becomes extremely critical. Implementing conversions API to feed CRM conversion signals back into LinkedIn is one of the easiest ways in which you can make the platform work harder for you, right? And ensure to send both top of the funnel conversion signals in terms of high intent page views to bottom of the funnel conversion signals, trials, demos, meetings, and deals, and ensure that each of your campaigns have these signals being fed in and they are able to kind of auto optimize. The company intelligence API, that would be a major unlock in terms of elevating your measurement strategy. And it essentially adds that second layer that Jessica talked about, which is your marketing metrics around target account reach, company engagement, on target percentage, how many of those accounts have moved from one stage to the other. All of those business metrics which help you connect your media investment to business outcomes. That is what company intelligence unlocks for you. And finally, build an attribution measurement framework that helps you measure the platform more completely and measure your ROI from LinkedIn more completely across both top of the funnel brand investments as well as bottom of the funnel lead gen investments. And that is what will help you turn your LinkedIn investment into measurable, predictable pipeline and also give you the confidence to focus on scaling your campaign and not just kind of trying to figure out how to justify each of the campaigns that you're running in every weekly meeting, right? So I would strongly recommend that at least a few of these initiatives you should, if you can start implementing, I believe that would be a game changer for you from your LinkedIn ad strategy perspective. As always, we are available for any questions that you might have. Both Jessica and I are reachable on LinkedIn. If you were to kind of write to us, we'd be happy to kind of get back to you with more specific sort of answers to questions you may have. Jessica, thanks a lot for doing this session today, and Sunny as well. Really appreciate it. So all three of us are available for you to connect with and reach out with any of your questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Sun.